What's up, everybody? Aloha Friday. Hang on. I'm just texting. All right, just texting Charlie. He's still wrapped up in the audit at work, so he is not going to be able to make it tonight. Poor thing. He's been super busy. Anyway, let me get this stuff all set up. All right, all right, all right. What's up, everybody? Aloha. First of all, let me apologize to those of you that had to see me half naked earlier. I was setting up and I got this new called a Stream Deck, which allows me to do all kinds of things. And I accidentally hit the go live button, and it went live exactly what it was supposed to do. And unfortunately, I was setting up, so I didn't have my shirt on. So a lot of you got to see my half naked body. I apologize. Apologize. It was funny. I'm sure it was. I tried to delete it as quick as I could, but I know a bunch of you saw. So I apologize. I apologize. That was so inappropriate. But that's just how it is, guys. It takes me a little bit to set up and just trying out some strip tease. Yeah, no, absolutely not, bro. I eye opener. Yeah, man, you don't even know. My heart stopped for a second, and my 76-year-old mom, Anita, thinks you're hot or fire or whatever. Anyway, I'm glad I realized that we had gone live. If I, if I can imagine if I hadn't caught it and whoo. Anyway, aloha Friday, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. Lots to talk about. Before we go any further, I did wanna. Lots of things going on in the world today. Uh, Russia's invasion of the Ukraine. What a mess. And I ask everyone to pray for Ukraine, uh, all those innocent citizens, children, kupuna. I mean, made me realize today, not today, this has been going on for the last 3 days. Yeah, the Stream Deck is amazing, man. This thing is this little thing here. So yeah, I'm trying to, bottom line is I'm trying to actually learn more about this streaming because at some point I want to transition off of COVID and actually do some really good shows featuring entertainment, local issues, and stuff like that. So I'm slowly learning and trying to improve the system. Uh, so yeah, I appreciate you guys' patience. But anyway, getting back to uh, Ukraine, I just in the last few days, yeah, we don't definitely don't hate the Russian people. Yeah, you know, lots of the Russian people are protesting against their government. Um, Lots of uh, protesting going on right now in Russia. Uh, you know, you got to understand, Russia and Ukraine are so intermingled with family and friends. A lot of Russians live in the Ukraine. A lot of the Ukrainians live in Russia. A lot of families live, are split up between the two countries. But the Russian government, uh, Putin, is an evil man, and that invasion absolutely unjustified, uh, totally unjustified. And Ukraine, again, we just got to pray for them. Looks like the Russian military is getting closer. They're in Kiev already and attacking. And I think they underestimated the power and the will of the Ukrainians. And but it's not a good thing. I just think about those women and children being separated from the husbands and dads because the husbands and dads aren't being allowed to leave, and a lot of the citizens have picked up arms and are defending the best they can. But then I started thinking about America and the freedoms that we have and how we see it all the time on Facebook about how our freedoms are being stripped away because of COVID. And then you think about those poor souls in Ukraine that uh, have have no freedom right now. In fact, they're trying to trying to stay alive. I just don't think we any of us, unless you've been in that situation, can understand what it must be like knowing that. I mean, the bombs are going off. You can hear the rounds, the military rounds going off. You can see the anti-air missiles, rockets, and constant fighting, knowing, not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow. And then I think about us here in America who have all the freedoms that we want, and the fact that you know many are complaining that we're run by dictators or tyrants or communists. I don't even know how you can compare what's going on in places like China, North Korea, Ukraine, um, and say that we don't have freedoms here in America, that our freedoms have been stripped. I really don't care whether you believe in a vaccine or not, or whether you believe in masking or not. The fact of the matter is that we have been given choices, and our choices have consequences. So if you choose not to get vaccine, then it comes with a consequence. You have that right, though, to choose. No one's being forced. And likewise with the mask. And we'll talk about the CDC, the new guidelines set out by the CDC today, and how Hawaii is reacting or responding as well as the rest of the country. But I have some really good questions, I think, for the doctors tonight. But I did want to just ask each and every one of you tonight to pray for Ukraine, and even to those Russians that are obviously everyone. This destabilizes the whole world. If you think about it, the adjacent countries to Ukraine, some of them NATO countries, some of them not. Um, this is just the beginning of something that could last for a long time, and we really gotta pray for our uh, brothers and sisters over there in Ukraine. I know some people don't give a damn, but I do. When I watch, and like I said, I can only imagine what it's like for those families that have no idea if they're going to be alive or dead tomorrow. Uh, who knows what Putin will do? Is he going to resort to um, bombing civilian targets? We don't know. It's just so unstable over there. So anyway, someone asked about my stepmom. My dad just popped in. Hello, Mel, and all Facebook friends. Aloha to all from Seattle. Linda is in the rehab center and trying to get better. It's real hard for her since she can't stand up because of the COVID. Still need prayers. So, uh, you know, again, it's you know, people still say COVID is mild. COVID is like the flu, and my stepmom is struggling right now. This virus has affected not just her lungs, but her heart, her liver. Right. My dad sent me the report. There were so many problems that were created from COVID. That was in the copy of the medical report that he sent me. So yes, we are continue to pray for my stepmom. It's going to be a very long and tough road, and for many people that get this horrific disease called COVID. So um, yeah, it yeah, it's just one of those things. We got to continue to pray for all. So anyway, Dr. Miscovich is in here. I did want to. I'm going to bring him in right now. Again, Charlie's working, so he won't be in tonight. What's up, Doc?
Hey, how's it going, Mel?
It's
Um,
going all right. It's going all right.
well, prayers for stepmom, uh, and it is a long road, but it's. I was actually fortunate. I was seeing patients in the office today. My life has a little sense of normality, but for me, one of the things that was really interesting per your stepmom, I was seeing patients and we were talking about long COVID. And I was seeing people that had COVID. And you know, I think you've described it well. She has that will, and that's going to be one of the biggest things that people with long COVID will have is the will to just do it one step at a time. And you know, you have led, and the team here and has really led a great way for people to understand about long COVID. And also, we're getting good feedback on what treatments are available and who's providing that type of treatment. And that's something we're going to need in our state. I mean, every island is going to need experts to provide that care, and quality experts that know what the hell they're doing and care. It shouldn't be just somebody who thinks they know something. It should be vetted at quality, because, you know, we're going to be into the next 5 years trying to help people with long COVID, and it's a really important topic as we move forward. So, but hope she does well.
Thank you, Doc. We've been talking about long COVID. I know,
I know.
all of the experts that have come on our show have always, you, I think, more than any other, but maybe not. But anyway, majority of our experts have focused on long COVID and really said that that was something we needed to be watchful for. In fact, many of them said the difference between this and the flu or influenza, one of the major differences was long COVID, was the impacts of this virus after infection and even after the symptoms are gone. The damage that this virus can do to people's organs. Again, in my stepmom's case, we know so many others personally that are suffering today, still struggling. So,
Yeah,
yeah. So, I mean, long COVID is one of the things that we are not prepared for. We have not prepared for, and I think it's gonna come back to bite us in the okole.
well, the thing that's also important is the long-term associated disability associated with some of the permanency. You know, when we talk about long COVID, just for the people maybe who haven't been on the show to hear, or people that want to get a little deeper dive, there are symptoms that people will get, especially neurologic symptoms and confusion, um, and um, and weakness that will occur from it. So that's a biggie. That's a biggie, and I start with that because that's a very broad. It can go from depression to memory loss to speech to concentration, uh, uh, to vision. I mean, taste. Good luck. I mean, that's a huge issue. Is how many people are losing taste. But now we have to go over to the and yeah, Melissa, a lot of SSDIs going to come out of this. Well, then we have to go over to the people who have the permanent damage, and I started to check my patients for it today, going in when I'm getting some of these people that are just showing up. And I was like, well, have you had your echocardiogram? Have you had maybe a stress test or a treadmill test? You know, because they're sitting here saying, oh God, I'm feeling tired, doc. I'm winded all the time. Well, one of the big, more permanent damages that occurs is damage to the heart and damage to the lungs. And there has to be a coordinated testing effort by your doctors to do this. And we talked about how sometimes, too, it's a little bit back and forth, where the primary isn't really totally involved in it, and they'll refer someone to a cardiologist, and we send someone to a pulmonologist, and they'll send someone to a neurologist. Well, they're great, but you've got to bring it all together, because everybody is a single person, and each of those symptoms creates one single constellation of symptoms that is created by COVID. So we need people who are specialized in understanding how each interplays, and one might affect the other. So it's a very, very big thing, and I guess I'm awake and alert tonight because I'm reading some of these things and everybody's saying, yes, I've said this from day one. One of the things we're not paying attention to is the long-term disability, the SSDI. So many people are never going to work again, and they're going to be caregivers, they're going to be families, they're going to be parents, and they're going to have children, etc. And we need to be ready to support these people and not have the government go open arms to help them, including our state government, versus closing the door. So, there's Dr. Akiona.
Welcome to the show.
Hello. It's a little dark. Sorry, I'm trying to find light.
That's all right. We can see you.
Just light something on fire.
That's what it feels like the world is. The world's on fire.
God, I know. Mel was talking about it earlier, talking about Ukraine, and that is just so freaking devastating. I listened to it and watch it, and I just.
I kind of watched all day, just watching the headlines and watching the various channels, because every channel has a different spin. The cable channels, but the story is the same. What's happening is the same. It's the opinions of who's wrong and who's not. That just why. Now is the time we're supposed to all come together as a country. I don't give a damn if you're a Democrat or Republican, and that's what's the most disgusting thing. Even with COVID, now all of a sudden you see politicians jumping in the fray again, right? Because the CDC comes out with a new recommendation. Now people are coming up and saying, But anyway, for 2 years we haven't heard much from anybody, and now you're going to start hearing people for two reasons. Number one, new guidance from CDC. Number two, election year. So those that have been absent in the last 2 years now have to become relevant, so people know their name and remember them when they go vote. I mean, and that's the same thing is happening at the national level with the Ukraine. So it's sad, but it's true. And again, I can only imagine what it's like for those families, those young kids, and no one should ever have to. It's so unnecessary. And everybody can have political differences as far as what should or should not be done. I don't really give a damn. The bottom line is innocent people are getting killed, damage crazy across the Ukraine country, and they're just struggling now and fighting to stay alive and not knowing what tomorrow will bring. So again, prayers for all of them. But tonight I wanted to, and I'm going to start off with some weird thoughts that I've had today, and then I really would love to get your perspectives on what I'm about to say. We knew that COVID, at some point, we knew that COVID was going to go away. We knew that not go away, but become manageable.
Yeah.
We knew that. No one was foolish enough to say that COVID was going to come and go and we'd never hear from it again. Every expert talked about we're going to live with COVID for years and years to come. So with the CD, and there's this fight, about restrictions, releasing restrictions, and so forth. But now with the CDC coming out with these new masking guidelines, they've been wrong before, but that's not the point of my context of what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is that Oahu will lift safe access, I believe, on the 5th, if I'm not mistaken, March 5th. So there will be no testing or vaccination requirements to go into public places anymore. It doesn't sound like Governor Ige is going to lift the mandate. He said at least not before March 26th or some date, when his executive or whatever emergency power or resolution expires. The rest of the country, for the most part, will lift the mask mandates. And this is what I'm thinking. This will give us a good opportunity to really find out the impact of COVID now. As more and more mask mandates are lifted, we'll monitor the hospitalization and case counts in these areas that have no restriction. We still will have a few more weeks, about 3 more weeks or so, about a month actually, before the governor lifts our mask mandate. If in fact there is no significant change in cases or hospitalizations, and we'll start with you, Dr. Miscovich. Do you believe that maybe we are reaching the end? and I know it's somebody's talking about the deaths. We know that the deaths follow the case counts by, weeks, if not months. But this is, I think, and this is the way I'm looking at it. This is a great opportunity for us to test to see how immune resistant this virus is now that restrictions are being lifted across the country. And Hawaii will still have a mask mandate, so we'll be able to monitor our counts as well as watch what happens on the mainland. But what are your thoughts as far as the future of COVID? Is there a possibility that we may be seeing the light at the end of the tunnel?
Okay. Basically, what I will tell you is what I've said to the world in my CNN time, and that is no one knows, first of all. So no one knows for sure. But I will tell you that if you really look at what we know so far, what do we know, Mel? We know what we know as of the 25th of February. And we look back 3 months, and we look back 6 months, and we look back 9 months, we look back 12 months. And you take all that data, and you've just had the best of the best people on this show from our core group of experts. And then, Jerome Kim and other people. And everybody should understand, we're all very independent. We're all totally not political. We're all totally engrossed in the data and studying it. And then we've come together and we talk about it, and we banter and agree and disagree with each other, but very respectfully. And the best answer we could tell you, if you wanted me to commit, there will be at least 1 to 2 more variants. All right. The next variant statistically is most likely to occur in the Southern Hemisphere, as the Southern Hemisphere will transfer into its winter. Because there was a much different vaccination rate. Look what happened down in South Africa, where we had Omicron. So the data that we had shows that there likely will be another major variant. Now, what is the risk? The risk is, and I don't know if people saw me, I just finished my KITV time before this. The risk is waning immunity. We do not know what the new variant will be, what it will be related to, how contagious it will be, what types of new mutations will be, that we don't know. But what we do know is our immunity is waning, right? So I've said this, we'll say it again. Likely everybody expect another shot by the end of the year. I think we'll have another one recommended by the fall. And I expect we're going to have another shot offered next year at minimum. So I would expect 2 more variants and 2 more shots. That would be I said this also. We are over the peak. Totally agree with that, Mel. That's, I think, when we start talking about are we getting past it? We are over the peak, and what's to come, we just don't know at this point. We just don't know, and that's what kind of drives us crazy about the politicians. It's kind of what is very concerning to me, and I know we'll get into probably talking about what the CDC came out with today. But this is another one of the decisions coming out of the CDC that's probably more politically based than fully medically based. It does have some good medical basis to some of the data they're including there, but this was pushed out probably as more of a political move versus a medical move. So that's where I'll leave that. Hopefully I answered that.
Yeah, no, I guess it's hard when I think too much and I think too much into things, and is the CDC guideline today tied to the fact that the federal government monies are going to be ending shortly? There's just I'm a kind of skeptical guy.
Yeah.
But also I also understand the legislative side. Being in government, I also understand that it's hard to keep justifying restrictions when the cases are dropping, and so I understand the pressure he get. I give him a lot of credit for standing up and saying we're not dropping our mask mandate yet until we still having a lot of deaths. Or not to talk about myself, but I've had this kidney stone issue that my surgery has been put on hold for so long because they weren't doing elective surgeries. I got called today. So I will be going to surgery on March 23rd. So at Queens. Oh, I had Queens. Um, so Dr. Akiona, you might have to be reactivated again to run the show while I'm incapacitated. Hopefully not for long. My point is this though, because we still have issues with hospital capacity, and medical capacity in general. I was on a discussion on private messaging today, and a lot of people like to compare us to everywhere else on the mainland. My son was on the show last week. I guess it was last week, and he said, where he lives, there's hospitals on every side of his house. There's a hospital within 5 to 10 minutes away. So there will never be a shortage. Not never, but the likelihood of having being turned away from a hospital bed is much, much less than here. And we're seeing that till today. But I understand it's tough when the cases are dropping, the numbers are dropping, and to keep restrictions in place. I don't know where the governor is going to go after March 26th. I don't know what the numbers will look like. I suspect, and Dr. Akiona, you can touch on this, I suspect that after Honolulu lifts the safe access program, that we'll see another little jump in cases on Oahu. And when you get more cases on Oahu, you end up with more cases on other islands because people travel. But what's your thoughts, Doc?
Oh boy. Yeah, there's a lot to digest, huh? And I think so a lot of the background noise kind of stays there. And so you're right, like the shortage of providers, the limited resources on island never actually changes. It's just how close to the ledge we get. And and so it feels nice when we step back from the ledge when the numbers are going down. We're dealing with a lot more travelers now, and kind of a lot of people breathing a sigh of relief. And I think it was interesting because I think just like I was watching the news and watching Ukraine and watching people, there was like the reaction where they just cannot believe that we've gotten to this point, which is a familiar spot for the doctors, because we're just constantly like, I can't believe we got to this spot again. And that we've been trying to rack our brains because we want to take advantage of this lull and like ideal moment right now when we catch our breath, process what's happened, look at what we've learned, and then try to make a plan. And then I look to my left and I look to my right, and everyone is just like celebrating. And I feel like it's not really much to celebrate yet. Just the fact that a lot less people are getting sick isn't exactly something to celebrate. And so, listening to like the experts saying, we haven't even gotten to pre-Omicron levels in a lot of places, and we're kind of finding ourselves accepting a new normal. And so it's that slippery slope. And I think actually in my brain, this made sense in the context of war too. So like what is acceptable behavior just becomes a little bit more slippery. Because in the case right now where we're kind of like dealing on an international scale, like we're dealing with our internal politics, our U.S. politics, and we don't want to be seen as a bully, and we don't want to be seen as whatever. But the reality is, there's like some indigenous people in Crimea that's been, this has been a bad situation for years. And so but we've slowly kind of accepted different behaviors, and then we find ourselves in this situation where I think there's enough people that remember what war was like, and they don't want that to happen again. But there's also enough of them that have passed away. So a lot of us are naive. We don't remember what it was like. And I was thinking about that because it's similar to COVID where, slowly certain behaviors became a little bit more acceptable. And it's a slippery slope. And so like the moment that I would want the CDC to have a little bit more caution and just really, really make it clear that there's a very big difference between, locking down and then, wearing masks and all the personal stuff that you can do, like really supporting different layers of of protection kind of based on your local area and your personal kind of risks, instead of just kind of quickly just being so, I don't know, quick to turn things down and just want everything, like trying to help people feel like things can be normal again. I don't understand, because they hesitated a lot with all the crazy stuff, and but when it's time to take the mask, well, when they feel it's time to take the mask off, it's, and I to your point, we've been having these conversations on different aspects of vaccination, because the funding's ending for a lot of different supports. So for one big group, it's the home vaccination. There's actually a call center that was super helpful, and their funding is ending. And so it was a kind of like, they're spending time kind of figuring out what the next steps are, who's willing to kind of pick up the slack, what can we do, like where are funding. And I feel like that's smart. Like that's what we should be doing. We should, instead of trying to figure out how quick we can drop masks and stuff, it should be kind of planning for, well, knowing that money is going away or something like that. Like we should have a plan, and we have all of the experts. I mean, Doc, I think we should start so I have an idea. I think
we don't have a plan. We've never had a plan.
We don't have a plan. But I feel like we have like a think tank going. We have.
Oh, I'm talking about our state. Our state doesn't have a plan. I mean, there were individual counties that had tier structures, but we never had a statewide comprehensive response plan to COVID. We never did. It was every day they woke up and they checked the wind, and then they went out and made their statement and then you always had the lieutenant governor. I'm so happy now that he announced that he's running for governor, because he's no longer on the KHON2 news every stinking morning. But California had their endemic, and listen, I'm not saying we should copy California. I'm just, the concept of an endemic response plan. First of all, I think their title is wrong, but nonetheless, they have a response plan, and I would call it the COVID response plan. And it sets across the plan going forward with different benchmarks, different triggers. Certain things would be reinstituted or removed and so forth. But it's a game plan going forward. Now, I know both of you, along with many other local doctors, would be able to put that plan together in the best interest of health and safety. But Hawaii doesn't have a plan like that. Hawaii does not have a plan like that, Doc. I mean, and I think because of the lack of a plan, and waiting to see what happens tomorrow, or waiting to see what the CDC says, or waiting to see for whatever, I think a lot of people got sick unnecessarily and died because we just didn't have a plan and we didn't take the actions necessary. But maybe they have a plan and I just don't know about it. Doc Miscovich, you know of a plan that maybe hasn't been revealed yet?
No, you guys know. I still have regular communication with Dr. Kim, or with Mayor Kim, and he's an amazing, guy, and I've really, really become to know him well. And with his emergency response background, he just reiterates of how you do this and how you plan for things, and how you are always trying to predict 3 or 4 or 5 steps ahead, and you're able to quickly modify. And we have nothing like that. And, it all has to flow back up to leadership. The governor clearly was not the leader to have during a pandemic. He handcuffed General O'Hara. He didn't let General O'Hara really do much or do anything, because General O'Hara would have been very, very able to really face this in a real systematic way with planning, etc. We had a horrible start dealing with Bruce Anderson and Sarah Park. That put us back tremendously at the beginning. Took a long time for that to change. And then, Libby comes in with no any real background, and did the best she can with the tools she had. But she'll be the first one to admit, this wasn't, she was just called to service, and she served, but it wasn't like she had the background and training to do this. And so when you combine all of those factors, and then, the bigger issue is then the governor goes, "Oh, I'm out of here, man. I'm going on vacation. I'm going on permanent kind of like, holo holo till I retire. And he just throws it out to the mayors. And oh my God, then look what happened, because you had just like all over the map where these people weren't healthcare. All of this should have come from the governor and the Department of Health. And if the Department of Health didn't have the wherewithal and the understanding, they should have surrounded themselves with leaders and created a plan, and should have created a statewide plan, and never given this up to the mayors, and never let the mayors play their little grandstanding games or waffle back and forth and do what they're doing. There should have been accountability for funding, because I just hope that someone goes through audits of all the waste and all the little friends and family that got all the money in this state, which would be just probably lead to another 20 criminal investigations. And so I'm saying that I'm not trying to look backward, because I hate to look backward, but the whole question is, what do we do going forward? Well, when you go forward, you have to learn from what your mistakes were. You have to correct them. You have to put a plan into place. So there should be a commission that's independent in our state to evaluate what went on. Never going to happen, because they want to act like they did great. And then we're caught in the middle of an election. So does anybody viewing this right now even have half a thought that any of our political leaders are going to be bold enough to do anything in an election year? Nah, they're all going to be doing this, wobble, 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 and there won't be any action. And the governor's already proven like he's totally out to lunch, man. He's gone. He's retired already. So I said this on the news tonight, and I said, when you look at what the CDC just did today, and then you look at some of the things that are happening here locally, I said that was a political decision from CDC, not necessarily a full medical decision. I want to summarize to everyone what this all means. We're on our own. That's it. Basically, we are on our own. You are on your own. There's a few references in the CDC guidelines. Go talk to your doctor, right? And that's what it's going to start being. It's going to have to be you caring for your family, the village caring for the village, you making good decisions, you looking out for what's going on, you understanding who's at high risk and making your own decisions for masking and who's going to wear a mask that could come in and things like that. Because basically the CDC just did another political thing and dished us, and we're not going to get anything out of any local politician here. And so we're on our own. So that's all I can say.
Yeah, we talked about this last week or earlier in the week. I forget already. And I think that's the pivot. I know this whole COVID created a new word, pivot. The pivot, at least for us here in the village, is, we know what's going to happen. Restrictions will be lifted at some point. But we know, like you just said, Doc, we all know what we need to do. We all know who's vulnerable. We all know who needs more help than others. And we have to make that conscious decision to do what we need to do to stay safe and keep our loved ones safe. Regardless of what the governor says or does, it doesn't matter, because he could lift the mask mandate tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And I would still wear a mask, and that's for me. But the choice would be yours. But if I said this a couple nights ago, if I went to a restaurant and there was a bunch of loud people without masks, I would not go to the restaurant. I would just not go. But that's my choice, right? It's not a right taken away from me. No, it's a choice. It's a choice. So we all got to do what we got to do. We all know the CDC. This is where I have a problem. When the CDC's recommendation fits our state's narrative, they follow the CDC. Or if the CDC's doesn't have a recommendation that the people would like to see, then our state always says, "Oh no, we're waiting for the CDC."
Yeah.
But when the CDC comes out with a policy or a guidance like they did today with the mask mandates, our state is perfectly fine with ignoring what the CDC said. I'm just bringing up a point to show how inconsistent and how basically how bullshit our state is when they give excuses for either doing something or not doing something. They'll find a justifiable excuse, such as, "Oh, we're waiting for the CDC." Oh, when we talked about, remember we talked about giving everybody a test before they get on the plane. Oh no, because the CDC says
Yeah.
you can fly without taking a test if you're vaccinated, right? I mean, so when it fits the narrative, yay, CDC. When it doesn't, no. And that is where I think you get a lot of division in the community. I mean, the CDC has, for me, I don't even know who ordained them as God. I honestly don't really care what they say. I don't, because I do my own independent research, and my research finds some things that are totally opposite of what CDC is saying. So I don't give them any credence. But our government shouldn't be saying we're going to rely on the CDC when we won't, or we won't rely on the CDC when we do. Rely on medical experts in science in all your decisions, regardless of what the CDC says. We'd be in a much better place. So anyway, that's my rant for the day.
Mel, what you're describing is a typical thing that drives me up a wall, and it's described in another narrative, and it's the whole concept of a shield and a sword. They use it technically as a shield when they want to, if it's for their benefit, and then when they decide that they need to do something, they take it out and they use it as a sword, and they try to use it to fight forward. That's obviously comes from medieval times, but it is they use it as a defensive, and they change it like that just to fit their own narrative. So very, very, very well put. And it just pisses me off with this whole concept of and I'm across the country working, and I call them the lazy cut and paste CDCers. And you have departments of health, and you have county departments of health or agencies, and all they do is take what the CDC says and push a button, and they said, well, there's the CDC. And the reason I'm bringing that up is that this CDC mask mandate is a perfect example. Let me highlight to the people of Hawaii why it's a problem. It is using data that is standard epidemiologic data. Now, I've said it on here I said it on my news segments, I said it over and over, of 10 per 100,000 and some of the data points. But what it took relative to what you were saying, Mel, it uses hospital data. Kauai's an island. It's got one frickin' hospital and one ICU there, as does Maui, and then Big Island doesn't have it. And so when you take, for example, I was on with just going back and forth with our expert group, and Tim and Dr. Dworkin and I were just kind of raging on it. And Tim's data was that if you take the data at 1.4 million people, it's 140 in the hospital is one of the cutoff points, right? Rising up, it's kind of already a lot, right? Because once you get to 140, the 2-3 weeks from there, you're going to be at 280. So that might be okay if you're in suburban Los Angeles or up around Seattle or something like that. But when you look at our state, that is not very, very that's a challenge. That's a challenge. So this data wasn't written for Hawaii, and yet we will use it as a shield and a sword, and most of the time we'll ignore it and say, well, the CDC says it. So, even though we have people that are going to start dying and the disease is spreading, the CDC says it. So, and I said, Chris is saying you have 3 hospitals. Chris, you have 1. You have 2.
Yeah.
One piece of one up there, and another one is So, sorry.
No, Chris is talking about Kauai, where we have.
I'm familiar with all 3 of them, but you have 1 hospital that's really significant, and then you have a couple that are not. probably doing a whole bunch of COVID, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I think
it's the real number for Kauai that is alarming is the ICU numbers. We have 9
Yes.
ICU beds.
Yeah.
That's the issue. It's the 9 ICU beds with 75,000 residents and probably 15 to 20,000 visitors a day, giving us very close to 100,000 people on the island on any given day, and the ICU beds are precious and it's very limited. So I think again, if the CDC was to get that same people together and did an analysis for Kauai or Oahu or the state of Hawaii, it would be a little different because
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
different. That's what I don't get. People, we can't compare ourselves to California, Florida, because medical resources.
Well, and I think but the thing is, a lot of the times it's coming from Honolulu, where you can rely on a little bit more care, and then, I've been like kind of butting up against it. A lot of they'll cite data that's not quite correct, but they'll just kind of, oh no, everything's fine. There's this many beds left, and I was like, I mean, I don't know. It's just kind of alarming how comfortable people are citing data that is either old, like incorrect, or shouldn't be, like you're saying, like it's not relevant to kind of our situation, like on the Big Island. I mean, it takes so much hoops to jump through to get care in a regular situation that like a small bump actually, like, it's magnified, and I think it kind of tells us that certain lives are worth a little bit less than others. It's just we're willing to lose a little bit more. And
yeah, one of my friends that passed away from COVID early on in the pandemic was pretty much stuck here on Kauai because there was no room on Oahu. He couldn't be medevaced, and so and they explained to the family, treatment was going to be the same, so it was more detrimental to send. It would be more detrimental to get them on a medevac. No, I think that was just a reason to try to soothe the family, but the real reason was there just wasn't enough beds to accommodate all the patients, and there's many stories like that where when during the peaks and the major Honolulu hospitals, the trauma centers have what do you guys call it? Divert? I think it's called a divert, where, sorry, you gotta do the best you can because we just don't have the capacity. And I think that's where we differ so much. And I don't know how anybody can argue with that. I don't know how anybody can debate that.
I think because a lot of it, like a lot of the stories become so isolated. And so it's just like, I talk as we were going around the island, and you can hear from different people like the same situation happening, but nobody gathers these stories. And so it'll be like, it'll burn out a physician or a nurse, and that person will leave with all that knowledge, remembering all the calls they made to try to get somebody over to the island, to Honolulu. And like I mean, I don't know how many providers we've burned out here just trying to get like our asthmatics over to Honolulu, but there's no space. There's no, yeah, we just get it weighs on the doc or the nurse, and then it kind of stops there. Like, it doesn't get shared. It's not something that we all talk about a lot. But like visiting families and hearing while we're vaccinating, because we have about 15 to 30 minutes that we have to sit and talk anyways, and then they'll tell us some things, and I'm like, that's exactly what happened. And so you can hear that it's a recurring theme in certain populations, in certain areas of the island. They're not as isolated and singular as we'd like to think, but that I think they themselves feel like it's it's just one thing that happened to their family. And I'm like, well, there's so many of you guys though. And I think if we all were more aware of how often it was happening, it would be hard to hide from that. I think just the sheer force numbers.
Real quick question. And the reason I pop it up is I haven't heard much. I mean, I think herd immunity was tossed out a long time ago. I think the whole, I think that I can remember a long time ago, months and months ago, where I read the article. The first article came out and says, stop using herd immunity. It's not possible. It's not going to happen. But maybe you can help with this. Can you please explain how reinfections make herd immunity impossible? Any one of you, it doesn't matter.
Well,
I mean, that's above my pay grade. I know that.
I mean, we're dealing with a virus that we knew. Doc, I look back at a talk I gave. I wanted to send it to you. It was something that we gave to Jesse's medic class, and I think it was about 4 or 5 months in to the pandemic. And so all of the it was a slide set that I had given to them, talking to them about all the testing and everything. But it's evolved so much over time. And so at that point, we were still saying, we're expecting 2 mutations per month or whatever. And we didn't know as much as we did now. And so I think, reinfections are hard to make herd immunity, because you're just essentially the immune response that we're trying to build against the virus itself isn't as effective. And so we're...
Here, I can help you out. I think I saw Brian refer to this a little bit earlier.
Yeah, he did down there.
Yeah, part of the problem, to try to answer that question without being too technical, is we never expected this virus to do what it's done, right? So when you keep seeing that you went from the original Wuhan and you just kept on going and you went the whole ways out to Delta, you started to get, each time it happened, we were like, whoa, look, it had these proteins changed, and we were counting. I remember, because again, I have to do so much data on this, and I was always on that freaking CNN, and they were always having me describe every new variant. I remember, wow, it has 12 mutations on this. And I was like, holy cow, is that different? Yeah. And then we're going up, and it's going up 30, it's going up 50, and it's changing. And then the cap right on top of the spike had 12 alone, which is, what, has made Omicron. And then Delta had a bunch up in the spike arm, and they just kept happening in the places that made it so much more contagious so that's the problem about the reinfection. It doesn't have anything to do with just technically reinfection. What it has to do is what has happened to the virus and what types of mutations specifically have happened to the virus that does two things. Now, the next thing that does is, which is gonna, it's gonna take us a little bit down a rabbit hole, but I'll just touch on it because this is a very informed group. If you take having one of the original infections and you follow like the people who say they didn't get any vaccinations, and then they came on and they were exposed to, say, Delta, they had, what was it, maybe 80% chance they were gonna, their leftover T cell, B cell, whatever was there, it was kind of half useless because this new variant had changed so much. Then you went to Omicron, and it was like Omicron just is like, basically you had, different types of mongooses, and one changed in color and size and got bigger, and the teeth got bigger. And then you put a freaking small tiger there. It was like, oh, we respect the mongoose. It's a freaking tiger. It's like, and so it was just so far different in the whole process that we started all over again. So that's the problem, where if it was just the same thing cruising along, just a little bit different, yeah, we could be starting to use the term herd immunity and starting to get a lot more immunity to it. And I do want to highlight, there is some great data that, again, keeps coming out. We just get more and more data that's quality data. And actually, our body's T cell, B cells are sticking around. Of if you had past infection, they are sticking around and they are helping. And that's why, there's a lot of information that really talks about how important past infection is in preventing serious disease. So, best thing you could ever have is vaccinated, boosted, and maybe another booster, and having had the prior disease. And you can probably take your mask and put it in your junk drawer. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, remember early on, and I think a lot of it was to get people to get vaccinated. They said once we reach 70%, we'll be at herd immunity. Remember that? That was 2 years ago. And then And then after the first few mutations and variants, they said, "Oh, wait a minute. We're looking at over 90% now." We all knew, everyone knew we'd never get to 90% vaccination. It was just impossible. And we're finding out now, right? I think the state keeps saying 76%, but we're really not at 76% because that's not 76% of boosted. But the fact of the matter is, we have pretty much plateaued with vaccines. Yeah, we still give a few more, but it's not like we're going to get up to 90% vaccination rate anytime soon. The fact of the matter is, we gotta play with the hand we've been dealt, and that's 76% of the people in our state have had two shots or one shot of J&J. That's the reality. Now, what we really got to figure out is future variants, and like you said, Doc, we simply do not know. I mean, we could have a new variant that comes out that's less contagious, less severe illness. We could get one that come out that's more contagious, that's immune resistant.
Right.
We just don't know.
We just
And
don't know.
the question is, and I'm just trying to be I don't want to say devil's advocate because I don't want to do that, but the question has to be asked, right? Do we continue with these restrictions while we wait for the next variant, or do we lift restrictions until there's a reason to reinstate the restrictions? See, the problem in Hawaii leadership, though, is we wait until it's too late, right? We wait until the variant has rooted itself in our state and the spread has already been initiated, and we cannot slow it down anymore because it's already throughout. Rather than, well, there's a variant of concern in Africa, I don't care, in Israel, in who gives a damn. And we know because of the way the trends have showed us in every single variant that it's going to get here, so let's prepare for it now, before it arrives. But our state is not capable or not willing to do that. And that is, I think, the problem that we have.
It's
If
so
we had a
nice to
responsible
say
government,
problem. Like there's
I
only
mean,
one. There's so many. Yeah.
yeah, I
Mel,
know. But
Mel,
if,
you
if
are
we had
so
a
right.
Yeah.
no, if
There's
we
just
had a
so
listen,
many.
guys, we're going to lift the restrictions, right? We're going to lift the mask mandate.
Mhm.
We're going to whatever. But these are the benchmarks. These are the thresholds. Now, boom, variant of concern pops up with, and once it develops and it becomes a variant of concern, then we have a good idea of transmissibility and severity and all of that. And at
Yeah.
that point now, you reinstate, to me, you start locking up our borders, right? You start isolating, not letting that variant come into our state. In other
Well,
words, so we're going to inconvenience the travelers for a little bit, and we're going to make you test the day of your traveling. We'll make you test uh, after you arrive because we don't want the variant to get to Hawaii, and we could enjoy less restrictions for much longer periods of time.
well, but I think there's so many different parts of that we lack, right? So like, I mean, like the global problem, you're right. And then, but then, we don't have reliable data. We don't have a good communication, like a group, a task force, or a way of communicating it. Because I mean, like that was the whole thing. I didn't always agree with everything the county of Hawaii might have done, but the one thing that we did do was try and figure out where the reliable data was from. So we were analyzing or trying to make decisions based on good information in real time, and then trying to like that, like in order to do what you're saying, as experts, we would need reliable data. We would need access. We would need transparency. We need accountability. And there's so many layers to that like we
Well,
don't get, right?
that
So
is true.
it's the responsibility part, like being able to say to themselves, like, you know what, we are not handling this very well. Like we need to think of a different way of doing this, or like hi Pam, hi, like let's use their data, or who has good data, like let's look outside and figure out how to get good data, reliable data, be accountable, be transparent, and then kind of create a there's so many there's I think that's the frustrating part, is when we sit there and I talk to people about this, and like there's so many things that are going wrong, and then I wish it was a little easier, but I mean it starts with having good reliable data. And in order to like kind of thoughtfully process that, you need to have the subject matter experts. They need to be respected, and they need to be heard. And I think that's the frustrating part in the village, is that you have these experts coming on your show. There are people who could do some data, like really good stuff. people who create these plans and benchmarks, but we're sitting together talking to each other and trying to figure it out. I don't know.
Hey, Mel, I'm having, I don't know, tonight I'm all over. I'm multitasking. I'm able to read and talk to you guys. I don't know why. I know, because I was in the office. I was a doctor today. That's probably why. I was seeing patients today. So I'm back to being who I am. But there's a recurrent theme, and I actually did say this in KITV tonight, and I think I'm going to try to pick some of the little positives out. I think Dr. Akiona will love this. If I take one of the highlights of what I said earlier, where they basically, CDC and everybody saying in our state saying, hey, we're out of here, man. It's all up to you. It's all up to you. We've done everything we can do. Go ask your doctor. Go ask your doctor. Read what the CDC guidelines show. And if everybody hasn't looked at it, look at it. And most of it says, go discuss this with your medical provider. Well, here's something that's going to answer your questions. Discuss this with your medical provider. And Marlene's just asking it right now. And that question is, your doctor, because there's so freaking many vaccines out there right now, they're going to be thrown away again because we have so many and they're all going to expire. Your doctor has the ability to make a medical decision, and all they have to do is just write a little note for you and say, in my professional opinion, my patient such and such, Marlene, has enough immunosuppression that they should get a 4th shot. And that's it. That's all the letter has to say. And you just hand that letter and you go and you give it to Dr. Akiona, or you give it to a vaccination center, and those people are there just doing their job, and there's nothing that will stop them from giving you your 4th shot. And if you're a doctor out there listening, you're a medical professional, okay? You are a medical professional. And right now, we don't have the tools where they're not, we could do some antibody tests, but that's IgG, which I've just had mine done just because I want to see what the data looks like. But the fact is, if you're looking at a patient's got a few medical problems, you've been seeing them for a while, especially if you're over 75, hands down, science tells you that our immune system starts slowing down probably after the age of 60, 65. At the age of 75, we know for sure the immune system is slowing down. Therefore, you are telling the truth to the best knowledge you have, because there's no crystal ball, and you're not going to be able to suck something out, with blood to give you any other answer. So it's a risk-benefit decision. So you're going to sit there and you're going to say, am I creating any harm by having this person take a 4th shot, knowing that everybody's starting to have waning immunity? Or am I doing any risk to them? No. Is there a benefit? Hell yeah. It's black and white. We know what the benefits are after you get another booster. Do we know fact, that people older than 65, 75 are having decreases in their immune response to the vaccines? Yes, and yes, crystal clear. So it needs to be thrown onto we've just been given the keys to the car as the medical community. Now, damn it, take the keys, drive it in favor of your patients. Don't let anybody start worrying, what would the CDC say? They've just given us everything. They basically are saying to us, we're done, man. We can't do this anymore. So, it's about time we let the doctor-patient relationship start making a decision. And I'm damn well going to have any of my patients that have any medical risks that I'm worried about, especially, the ones that are over 65, all of them over 75. I'm going to tell them all to go get a 4th shot. So that's my 2 cents.
And actually, one thing that I've been talking about more and more with people is that you don't go unscathed when you just go through the COVID infection. So it's just been on my brain because we've been talking about the persistence of your risk for cardiovascular stuff. We had a bunch of young guys just have a heart attack, or we've had situations for sudden cardiac arrest. And so, just the idea that exposing yourself to the virus unnecessarily kind of, I think a lot of people thought they got through, I'm having these conversations for vaccines, because you're right. We're not getting the big rushes of vaccines anymore. I get, it's a trickle in. I think over the last week or so, I had a lot of first time, but they're only really wanting the Johnson & Johnson right now. They're not really, it's kind of reluctantly. So we usually do ask them, like, why are you coming to get your shot today? So it's not the big numbers, but we're slowly getting them. And a couple of them were because, we talked about it. Like, if you get COVID, it's a roulette, right? So there, we knew that for the 30 days after you get COVID, that your risk for having something with your heart go wrong was pretty high. But there's data that shows that this actually persists for a whole year. And so if you think of like big professions, our firefighters, or, the high risk people that already have occupational risk, they're high risk for exposure. And if you're unvaccinated and you had COVID, a lot of them are young enough that maybe they didn't even have a doctor visit yet. And, I've been hearing, a lot of us as physicians are like, oh, you're young, no big deal. And so they're educating people in such odd ways. Not the docs, but like, we look at like my coworker and be like, oh, you're 30, well, you're having a little bit of chest pain, just go lay down. And so, I'm having to explain to safety people again, like, hey, we got to take everything serious. You got to, it might seem silly, he's 30. But a lot of them got exposed to COVID. A lot of them are COVID positive, and we got to think this is heart until proven otherwise. Here's the data that's showing you that you have this persistent risk. And, we're looking at it in populations like Native Hawaiians, Pacific Islanders that already have crappy access to care. So it's just driving me nuts because, the same people who are having a hard time or not wanting to get vaccinated and have all this risk are just going to have risk of complications.
There's a whole bunch of good questions going back and forth. Sorry to interrupt. I want to make sure. No, we're coming down to the end. And like Liz wants to know, how long after your third shot should you get your fourth? Well, the bottom line is for everybody to know, you start waning. The data is pretty clear now. You're starting to wane after about your 4 months after your third booster. So I would say, if you have any major health risks, 4 months is not bad, but 6 months is kind of a sweet spot. But 4 months to get a fourth is probably where you're going to start having the data. But Liz, that's where an individualized decision with your doctor. Yeah. I just wrote a letter today for a patient, which I can't believe they were getting turned away, had a kidney transplant. And I basically said, this patient is eligible for a booster every 3 months because they were fully immunosuppressed. And it's just putting us back on. Jean wrote that waited 2 months after infection. To get the fourth. That was exactly probably the right advice by our doctor in California. Yep. Brian is such a star. We have some stars. Yeah, he was commenting about some of the data that Dr. Akiona was just coming out, where we have really solid data that shows, just that your cardiac risk will persist for a year. And I think he quoted 49 or 79%. Mm-hmm. This is all real. And then someone made a comment earlier about, are your doctors afraid of being sued or whatever? No, I think a lot of the doctors have not really kept up with COVID. Yeah. And what they've done is, they'll basically take the headlines, which is the same thing that the patients are reading, and they're not getting into the deep data or understanding the medical studies. And they just don't know. That's it, plain and simple. They don't know. And so, we have people that find us, and you guys certainly know we're not on here to create business. We're on here to just have the truth be out there. The word needs to get out. The village helps people know it. So.
Yeah, I'm finding that a lot of people who have time to be talking, generally it's because they don't really have the they're not in the trenches with us. So it's been kind of interesting to see what kind of information's out there. And yeah, and that's why we make time, because we want you to hear what we know, and good information.
Well, like the government, I mean, a lot of people hang on to the information that fits their narrative, and the problem with COVID or any pandemic, I guess, any new virus is that, and we've heard the experts say this so many times, every day we find out something new. So what experts may have said last year may not be applicable today because of the changes of the virus and the changes of the treatments and the changes and the data that we have since gotten back after all of the different studies have been done. So do I want to hang on to what was said 2 years ago? Absolutely not. I want the most current information possible. And hopefully your doctor is up to speed on. I'm lucky. My doctor is quite akamai. She actually reads a lot, so it's that's how we validate what you guys say. And all the experts are saying the same thing. You can pretty much take that to the bank, I guess. And I know some will disagree, but because some people still believe it's a conspiracy. But ask my dad and my stepmom if it's a conspiracy. Ask the 50-year-old woman, Kauai resident that died yesterday, if this is a conspiracy. And I don't want to hear this. Oh, did she die of COVID or with COVID? Stop that. Stop it. Trust me. I've lost too many people in the last few months, and I don't have time to listen to that argument. This is not real. This is fake. I just do not have the energy or the time to listen to that stuff.
Hey, one thing that it was probably the only positive thing that came out of the damn CDC mask guideline is when they start talking about the hospitalization numbers, they say, well, we're officially going to count anybody in the hospital with COVID, regardless of whether COVID put them in the hospital or not. So we're not going to be able to listen to any of the garbage of the people here, saying, well, we counted this many hospitalizations, but these people were just in the hospital for something else and they were found to have COVID. Well, CDC said in the data they're going to use, if you're in the hospital and you have COVID, regardless of whether it puts you in the hospital, you're going to be counted in the hospital numbers to make, the determination whether it's green, yellow, or red, so otherwise, it wasn't really that valuable what they did today. So
yeah, you're right about that. Because irregardless, it increases your risk of poor outcomes. I don't understand. Yeah, I was like, oh, you incidentally found it, like your risk just went up. So I don't know. Really don't.
Yeah, I saw a patient today in the office. Okay, here's a perfect example. I saw a patient in the office today, in her mid-50s, pretty severe stroke. All right. And had a bunch of risk factors. And I'm reading through the hospital notes and things like that. And it was Queens. And I'm looking and it's like, wait, down here they said, oh, by the way, you have COVID. You were positive for COVID.
That's kind of huge.
Yeah, that's a pretty big thing. You have a stroke out of it, and then you look at her MRI, and she has some micro areas, and it wasn't that big of a stroke, and there was a couple of other micro areas, and you go, wait a second, the renal function went up, kidney function went up, and you're going like, whoa, what the hell were they talking about, man? Yeah, and it's just so, oh yeah, I didn't know I had it. I'm like, oh my God, this is just, it's just pathetic.
Well, I think, everybody's tired, everybody's exhausted, everybody's just cannot wait to get back to normal. And I hope that happens sooner than later. But it's just, I don't think we're going to be able to avoid new variants. I've already seen a couple of articles today of some new variants. In fact, I thought I saw one that said there was a new variant off of Delta identified somewhere. I'm not sure if it's become a variant of interest yet. They didn't name it, so I will see. But I think, we all just got to be flexible, but we all got to be smart. I think that's the bottom line. And I think that's, again, the pivot of, we cannot be looking in the rearview mirror anymore. We got to start looking ahead. And I think George just said, what next? Is there going to be a plan? I do not think there's going to be a plan. I think we wing it as a state. And it's pretty evident because when you don't know what's happening as a constituent, as a resident, and you got to wait every day, hoping to find out information, then yeah, that means we don't have a plan and we don't know what to expect. And everybody, not I shouldn't say everybody, I think a lot of people gave up tracking the stuff. But every day I wait for the numbers to come out, and I go to the dashboard to see how many people in the hospital. That's the first thing I look for, is how many more hospitalizations do we have today, especially here on Kauai, than we did yesterday. The case counts no matter to me. It's how many more are in the hospital because we are so limited. So we just gotta wait and see.
And Mel, throughout this process, one of the things that is the most unbelievable to me, and I think Dr. Akiona will understand this too, is that how valuable life is, how valuable every life is. And when you're a doctor, you basically just do everything you can to save one life at a time, and every life and every family. And when I see these counts of 8 and 9 and 7, and then you get people coming on and they just brush right over it. And again, have we ever had one public official look into a camera or say in print, I'm sorry, I really feel bad? And have you ever seen anybody with true heart and sincerity look and tell the people, I'm sorry, I wish I could have done better? But they're all like, it's your fault, you did it, and then they skip over and they talk about, oh, but we're great. Look at everybody else in the mainland. We're great. Yeah, there's a really Harry did. Yeah, that's exactly right. What a great statement. Thank you very much, because that is a true human being. Harry said it, and Harry still reminds me and still lives with it. And when it talks about the veterans home over there and the veterans nursing home, Harry just was so much but there's a true leader and a true person who cares, right? Yeah. Wow.
I gotta say, on Kauai, we get a press release every single day. Every single day we get a report of the real-time numbers. And unfortunately, lately, in the last couple of weeks, we've lost, I don't know, 8 or 9 people or something like that. But at least our mayor has the class to put out in the media the condolences and the apologies and the.
That's good.
I mean, that to me is what should be. But you hit it on the head, Doc. They read over the number of deaths. Now, we had 240 cases, blah, 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 and we had 8 new deaths. Okay. Now, imagine if that's your loved one that has passed away, and you're grieving, and the whole family is grieving, the extended family is grieving, the friends are grieving, and you listen to our leaders say, we're in a good place. We're in a good place. I don't know. And we've desensitized that already. So many people have died from COVID here in Hawaii. It's I use the analogy of the original Gulf War, when the Gulf War first started back in the 90s, and when we lost our first few soldiers and airmen or whatever, they would stop. The world would stop, and they would put their pictures on, and they would tell a little snippet about their life and about their family. And they did that for a little while, and then it just became so desensitized that they didn't no longer need to name them. They didn't no longer need to say anything about them other than, today 14 soldiers died, and it was it. And all of a sudden, there's no more sensitivity in the bodies. It's like, 8 more, 9 more. Hey, we should bomb them some more. We should send more bombs. We should nuke them. Because we've lost that sensitivity to death and to the pain that it causes so many people, especially here in Hawaii, because of our multi-generational setups at the homes.
Yeah.
It's, and I'm not talking about care homes, I'm talking about the residences where you get 3 and 4 families living together.
Yeah.
We've just we just desensitized it. The media has done it. And it's, let's get through it so we can get to opening up again, because that's the objective, That's
And I have to say this again, and Dr. Akiona will appreciate it because she's out there in the front lines understanding this. It pisses me off when there's this. The other thing you get is when the deaths are announced. But most of these were unvaccinated, like they didn't matter. Like they made the decision, like you didn't get vaccinated. Well, and the Oahu mayor is famous for that. It's your secondary life. You didn't get vaccinated. Well, you know what? We're out there, and I'm out there all over the country, and Dr. Akiona is all over the Big Island, and there are a hell of a lot of reasons why people don't get vaccinated. It is not just a single thing and a single choice. Everybody knows we support vaccines and boosters, but there are some very complicated issues that lead people to not get vaccinated. And some of it's family influence or friend influence. Some of it is misinformation. Some of it is, history of what happened 2 generations to other family members. There's millions of things that are not there. I mean, I'm sitting in the exam room today and I'm talking to some of my regular patients who are not vaccinated. And I would sit there and say, why? What is it? How can you tell me? And every single one of them. Yeah, like Mario says, transportation, it's language barriers, it's access. There's so many different things. So don't just write everybody off that lost a family member or is dying just because you say, well, they just didn't do it. No, they're humans. And they're citizens of our state. I don't care whether they're not here legal or not. They're a freaking human being, right? And we all, deserve to help another human. So that really gets me. But because you get me all fired up again.
Well, I know it does me too. I mean, we. No.
It's putting the face on.
They have created a new class of people. Our government has, called the unvaccinated. And again, while we do support vaccines and boosters, we never did push it, and we respect everybody's opinion whether or not they want to get it. I will be honest, I don't take the flu shot. When I was in the service, I had to get it every single year. Every single year. It was not a choice. That was a mandate. If you were in the service, you got the flu shot, in addition to a bunch of other stuff that heaven knows what was in it. I'm still alive. But I got really sick. Every time I took that flu shot, I got sick. And so I haven't taken it. I'm always good for a really good flu once a year. Once a year, I get them good. But docs, since I've been wearing my mask, I have not gotten the flu. I have not gotten sick at all for the 2 years. And the only thing that I've changed in my lifestyle was I wore a freaking mask every time I went out in the public. So for the people that say masks don't work, I beg to differ respectfully, but I know because I didn't get the sick the last, zero. Boom. So I'm wearing my mask regardless of what the government does.
Yeah.
Please, I'm not encouraging people to not get the flu shot. Please, I hope that you're not taking it as don't go. You go get your flu shot. I'm just saying that was my choice.
Yeah.
But do I need is there a separate set of rules for me to go into a bar or a restaurant or any kind of, no, there's not.
Well, it's that whole othering of people, right? To like make something, like kind of minimize the bigger problem and take away part of their humanity and make there be something that we can be upset about. And I think that's the tragedy when we're losing all these people. I think there used to be, I know that on the healthcare side, there's a couple nurses and a doc that just keeps track of all the healthcare workers that have been lost. And then they just keep on posting because then they want to remind people that they're people and their wives, sons, husbands, daughters. It's that. And that was one of the things that kept coming up in the moms group, the doctor moms group, and the pediatricians especially. They're like, you got to think of all the kids that have lost a caregiver, that have lost like somebody that they really love and care about, and that's hard to do, I think, to kind of sit in how uncomfortable it is, but I think we have to remember all the people.
I just, yeah, exactly. I mean, and again, it just created a divide in a community that I hope at some point we can actually recover and come back together like the old Hawaii used to. Right now there's a lot of hate, and I don't like that. But I see some questions, and again, I don't want to be rude, but I don't want to. The questions relating to specific conditions, I would ask that you ask your personal primary care physicians, because I don't want to put the doctors in a spot that have no idea who you are, never seen you before, don't have access to your records. Really want to make sure you get the best medical advice. If it's a general question, absolutely. Doc, I know you guys see the questions flowing, so if you believe you could answer a question, I think you know which one I'm talking about.
I'll answer. I'm not afraid to answer that question because a lot of these I've been asked, and again, I will qualify. Yeah, go ask your doctor. But I think the question was reversed. I think the question was saying, if you had Guillain-Barre in the past, is it safe for you to get the vaccine? And all data that is available is, you're okay to get an mRNA vaccine. But the question, when you're hearing the issue with Guillain-Barre and mRNA vaccines, it's that there's, I don't know, like 3 or 4 dozen people that have contracted Guillain-Barre after an mRNA. It was a very, very, very rare when you consider the billion of the mRNA, and to have that many, it's a rare side effect. But there's no other information that goes the opposite direction, that if you're a survivor of Guillain-Barre, that would you get it. So I'm not afraid to, because that's the best data available. And actually, we had new data available also that just came out about getting another shot if you had monoallergic reaction to the second, and the newer data came out and said, you know what, all data is showing that if you had a monoallergic to the first, that you can go ahead and get a second shot, that basically the next shot you didn't really have any reactions. So a lot of this, as you were saying, Mel, we're clarifying with data that, just like that data is 5 days old, but it's really valid data. I mean, we live this, and we don't take garbage. We take, there's probably about less than 0.5% of the data that's out there and studies that are out there will you hear us talking to you about, because some of them just are not, they don't have enough people in them. The study wasn't set up well enough to really to make that valid data. There is a real art to doing this. There's also years and years and years of having to read studies again and again and again to know how medical studies are put together. And people who are in other professions do this, but our lives are, and I know, and I'm sure Dr. Akiona is like myself, I know that in the pre-COVID era, there is never a week that would go by that I didn't read 200, maybe 250 to 300 medical journal articles. And then you only read journals that are quality journals, and you don't take the throwaways because you just basically throw those in the trash when they come in the mail.
Well, and then we had a lot of good, because I think I had somebody who had a bad reaction, and the allergists were actually coming forward, and a lot of the specialists were helping in real time to kind of like talk us through some of the more difficult cases. And I even had one with a really bad reaction, and their allergist was very she was like, give her the J&J. And I mean, I've never had that much force behind a recommendation from a specialist before. She's like, I need her protected. She had a bad reaction to the mRNA. It's totally fine. And so she was expecting me to put back. I was like, no, that's fine. And I just had to monitor her a little bit better. And so the allergists were really kind of knocking down all those barriers that we usually put up, like, oh, if you had a reaction, they're like, nope, it's more important. The risks and the benefits, it really, it's very clear that the benefits outweigh the risks at this point. And a lot of the people who were engaging in these conversations, is there any reason not to get it? Nope. And they, it was kind of nice in that way that we've had I think the allergists were pretty busy for a little while because mRNA vaccines, not new technology, but it was definitely a lot of the primary care and the pediatricians had some questions about it. So I know that for a while, it was a lot of just reviewing data, and then just looking to the experts and then listening to what was going on, and then trying to make it apply into all of the different populations that we're serving, and making sure that we're doing it in the best way possible so that we're not leaving anybody out.
Hey, I have to stop and ask a question. I saw a question a lot earlier that people were asking you, Dr. Akiona, if you were still at work.
Oh yeah, so I had a presentation that we have work, so I'm here at the testing center.
I was kind of looking over the shoulder. I didn't want to give it away where I think I knew where you were. Yeah. So, yeah. See, but this is what a dedicated person does who cares. Look at this. It's what, 8:23, and she's still there, and I'll be over there on Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Testing, and
Monday.
Kind of, it's like strategizing.
Yeah.
I wish we had more of a surveillance program in the state. I really do. I think that's sorely lacking, but that, again, beyond our control. We can only control what we can control. One thing before I ask for you guys' closing comments, I've been reading a lot, and I'm not going to get into the discussion tonight, but this whole thing with ivermectin, I read a few documents or articles. I guess Merck is doing the study, doing the actual study on the on ivermectin, and I'm dying to get that results out so we can finally see. But the point of my bringing it up is that I think doctors should have the ability to prescribe what they believe will work for their patients, regardless of what the medication is. And I told this story on one of our shows probably a year or so ago, when my mom was at the Mayo Clinic with cancer, and she had kidney cancer. She had tumors in her kidney, and she only had one kidney left. She had already removed one kidney prior to cancer. So she only had one part of a kidney left. And the doctor pulled the family on the side with my mom and asked if we were willing to try this drug that was not approved by the FDA for this specific. No, it wasn't a animal medication. It wasn't a horse dewormer or anything like that. It was a human drug, but not approved for the condition that my mom had. And of course, my mom said, yeah, I would like to try that. We all agreed. And that medication actually saved my mom's life and gave her, an extra 7 years to live. So I'm not against that, but I am so interested in seeing the results of that study, as the preliminary data that has come out has really shown no real benefit in ivermectin, but I'm dying to see the clinical trials and see what happens. So that'll be for another show once that study gets published and reviewed and all of that. Heaven knows when. So I don't know why I decided to bring that up, but I did. Anyway, it's 8:26. Dr. Akiona, any closing words of wisdom for our villagers tonight?
So I had to do.
Are you wearing scrubs?
No. I'm sorry. I'm in office clothes.
Oh, okay. No, it looked like scrubs. I thought maybe you were running for governor.
Not yet. I didn't announce. No. I have a soul. No, just kidding. So I had to do a demo. So I did some kind of. I usually try to summarize kind of what we've done. And it was nice to look back. So I did a summary in July of last year, in November of last year. And then I took a leap back like a year and a half ago. And so, kind of seeing where we've come. how far we've come. And I think, you know, if there's a silver lining or like kind of something positive that I can take away, I think there's a lot more people. It might not feel like this, but I want to tell you that there are a lot more people engaged in spreading good information. So more people are aware of kind of the lack of good data. People are more aware that we cannot rely on, you know, what we should have been able to rely on, so DOH, and, you know, they're aware, and they're trying to think of ways to work around it. And so I think my takeaway for the last week or so has been that there are people out there that are trying to get good information out. They are trying their best to use whatever resources they have to share, you know, things that they learn from here, things that they're hearing in the community, and they are approaching, you know, the problem in as best a way as they're armed to. What I'm realizing is we're at this point in our state's history where we're asking the public to solve a problem that they don't have any capacity to solve. And so by putting all the responsibility on individuals, I think, you know, it only, as a primary care doc, it breaks my heart because I know that we're not all armed equally. So I think if I can say something to you guys, it's like, you know, just recognize that. I think recognize that based on where you live, where you were raised, what ethnicity you are, maybe how much education you have, you're armed different. And that you add 2 years of the pandemic to, it didn't make things easier for anybody. And so I don't think that it's one size fits all or there's one solution for everybody, but, you know, I try to think of one way I can help you get your life a little bit better. It's gonna take a different approach for everybody. But whenever you're feeling tired and sad, just remember that there's actually a lot more people engaged in the process just like you. It just feels isolating. And so, you know, like I was saying with those deaths and the people who are having a hard time, you know, with hospitalizations and stuff, it feels isolating. The experience itself is very isolating and it's very depressing. But there's so many more of us that are going through the same thing. And I think, you know, through venues like this and through forums that people are creating, you're connecting, putting the dots together, and it helps to talk about it, but it also helps identify, because it, you know, from one case to like multiple cases, it becomes a pattern, and then it becomes something that gets a little bit more critical mass, and then we can get a little bit more support behind it, and then it feels like less of just a one-off, you know, and I think together we can kind of figure out how to solve it. Sometimes it needs just time. And I think, you know, that's where we're at today. We've learned so much. So I think, you know, at this point, we have some place to go. You know, it's not as bleak as it was a year ago, I think. You know, we're waiting on our kids all babies being able to get vaccinated. The data's not going to come out for a while because they're waiting for the 3 doses. I think somebody had asked that question, so I just wanted to sneak it in there. They're going to hold off until we get data from 3 doses. They're expecting that sometime in April, maybe. So we do have a couple more months to wait in terms of their recommendations for under 5. And until they're protected, we still have a bunch of people that are a vulnerable part of the transmission chain. That was one of the things that, you know, in my what's going on right now. Vaccinations still our best tool. Testing, the support and the demand is down, but treatments, the access to all the treatments are still poor. That's something that we could also, you know, kind of work on. And then other than that, it was just, you know, our take-home points that I sent out to the community people that were asking was just still the same. Stay engaged, remember personal mitigation, risk factor, that you can still do these things. They're still 100% in your power, the masking, the social distancing, and the hand hygiene. And then just engage, you know, look at what's bothering you, and then like come on here and ask us questions, and then let's figure out how to get more people educated, because the better we educate each other, the better our health is collectively. So that's my thing. Sorry, I said a lot.
Thank you, Dr. Misco.
Hey, first I want to give a shout out to Dad Thomas. Remember, Linda, going to get better one step at a time, man. Just keep the faith, and we'll all keep up the prayers. So, also want to give a shout out and prayers to the people of Ukraine. It's hard it's hard not to really feel that we're all in this together as a world, as who could have ever dreamed that the largest invasion, the largest military invasion since 1939 just occurred. And you know what that was? Soviet Union going into Poland. So, just pray for it, and stand together as a world. That's something we need to do. And as for COVID, we're on our own. Come together as a village. I think I've said my piece tonight. Come together as a village. Care for your family. Keep your masks. If you're going around where you don't know a lot of people around, wear your mask. Come on, man. It's simple. It's not that hard. If you're at home with family, wearing a mask. If you go outdoors, man, don't wear your mask. Don't. But if you're in a closed environment for a long period of time, fine. The single most important thing, shouting out to the medical community, whether you're a nurse or any kind of medical provider, and then to the people, is please understand and have some medical provider who knows about COVID, and you can look at it, tell you if you are at risk for serious complications. So many people do not understand what the risk, what are risk factors. And we have a lot of people walking around. And again, I was in the office today looking at unvaccinated people and saying, please get vaccinated, please, because you're on this medication and this is your weight, and this, you are a person that's unvaccinated that never had COVID. If you get it, you could die. And it's preventable. So, so anyways, that's the most important thing. We're on our own, and care for your family members. I gave you all the information about how to get a fourth shot. We need to get that out to the medical community, because you're not violating any law. It's exactly the opposite. You're standing up to your oath to help your patients be safe. So spread that word. Amen.
Thanks, Doc. Echo your sentiments about my dad, first of all, and my stepmom. Prayers going out. My dad just put down. I actually forgot that he was part of the initial Desert Storm deployment. He was a medic, and
Wow.
A military medic, and he was able to go out there and treat a lot of the casualties from Desert Storm. So Dad, thank you for your service. We continue to pray for Mom, and for those in Ukraine. My gosh, they need our prayers, guys. They need our prayers. We got to manifest peace over there, and just so horrible what's going on. Again, I think about the women, the children being separated from their it's just not a good thing, and we continue to pray. Doc, appreciate you guys coming on tonight. I know we didn't have a show on Wednesday. I was working, couldn't get out in time to do the show. Appreciate you guys' patience. We will be back on Monday with Dr. Jonathan DeWorkin. He will be sharing his insights, which we haven't heard from for a while. He's been super busy. I know he's working with the Kauai discussion group as well, so we'll get some information on that. That'll be Monday night at 7 o'clock. You guys have a wonderful, safe weekend. Enjoy. And remember, we don't want law. The governor doesn't have to sign one rule for us to brush teeth in the morning, right? Before you go sleep. But those things we do because it's to keep ourselves healthy, right? Same with COVID. We don't need restrictions or requirements or regulations. We already know, especially us here in the village. We know what we need to do, protect ourselves and our loved ones. So we just got to commit to do it. Stay safe, guys. We love you guys. God bless. Take care. We will see you guys next week.